Easy Sports Talk Show with Ed Smith and Javon Adams. My name is Javon Adams. You can call me Jay or J Love. That man on the side of me is the one and only Ed Easy Smith. He not only played professional baseball, but also played in the National Football League for that first Super Bowl bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. He's an author. He is also a motivational speaker. What is good, my brother?
Man, I just had my first day of PT, and, bro, they put it on me. I feel like it's the first day of training camp up in this piece, man. Need me a hot cold tub or something to go sit in.
Man, I could hear it in your voice as soon as we got online. I could hear it, man. I could hear it. I did. Nothing as taxing as what you did today, but I got back on working out, doing legs today. And so I didn't want to, that's when I know I needed it, because I didn't want to do legs today. And so I'm glad I did. But while I was going through it, I was not happy about it.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So we do this thing 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tell a friend about what we got going on here. But today, what I want to focus on is I came across an article about the top 25 changes coming to college football in 2024. I'm not going to go through all 25, but there's a couple that I wanted to throw out your way and get your thoughts on. And if you had a couple, you can obviously throw them my way. So that's kind of going to be what today's show is really all about. And I'll preface this by saying we know that these are some of the items that they have on there. The college football playoff is going from 4 teams to 12 teams. We know the changes that have been taking place conference-wise. The Big Ten added USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. So they have 18 teams in that conference. The Big 12 goes to 16 teams with Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. ACC, they go coast to coast, as this says in the article, adding SMU, which is in Dallas, and Stanford. Golly, this don't make no sense. And California, from the San Francisco, and Cal from the San Francisco Bay Area. We know that the Pac-12, it only has 2 teams. So it's Washington State and Oregon State. And what was interesting here is that Washington State and Oregon State, they'll play 6 games each in the Mountain West against Mountain West schools, but they're not eligible for the conference title. And then they'll still, Washington State and Oregon State respectively, will still keep their rivalries with Washington and Oregon as well. But so I'm going to just throw out a couple here for you. One is the fact that coaches will be able to communicate with players on the field engaged through radio devices and helmets, similar to the NFL. And this is their 17 and 18, because I'm kind of grouping them. And so those helmet comms, we should, instead of seeing those signs on the sideline where somebody's holding up a picture of Deputy Dog and Snoopy and a cup of coffee and the letter U and trying to decipher what the play call is. Your thoughts on that one?
Well, I've always been curious. I wish we had a college coach. Next time we have someone on, I'll see if we can get us a college coach that actually used to use the signs so they can help us decipher what that meant, some of those things meant. Yeah. As far as finally coming into the new age and using actual communication with the players in the helmets, like they do all the way down to even some high school levels, it's about time. You're talking about these universities making millions of dollars, playing in bowl games. The fans, 100,000+ people coming to watch the games each Saturday, and you're out there, not even with hand signals, you're out there with signs of, like you said, Snoopy and Deputy Dog and stuff like that. I think it's about time they moved into the new age. Now we don't have to worry about anybody stealing any signs or anything. Isn't it amazing that we had to go through the whole sign stealing thing with Harbaugh and them to kind of make the powers that be in the NCAA finally wake up and say, well, maybe we should use some of that new technology that everybody else is using instead of this stupid stuff we've been doing for all these years. So for me, that's finally, you put the communication in the quarterback's ear, defensive captain, special teams guy, captain, that type of thing. Now we can relay, and get away from what it might do, to be honest with you, Jay. Now that we're eliminating those signs and whatever all that stuff meant, it'll actually prepare quarterbacks to have to decipher. Like, now you're getting a play call in your head, and you have to go into the huddle and relay that to everybody else. The weirdest thing was they all get to the line of scrimmage, right? They do a fake clap, and then the entire team, including the offensive linemen, all turn and look
Yep.
to the right. That was the
Yep.
weirdest thing.
Yep.
So now we're actually going to get a quarterback who has to communicate the play to his team. Welcome to 2024.
Here's something though. How many coaches do you think will be resistant to that change and still use the same type of and still use that antiquated technology, so to speak, by doing the same thing, having to get up to the line of scrimmage and then clap and then look to the side still and look at the sign with the letter Q and a picture of me when I was in high school and then a lion and trying to figure out what the play is. I think there's still going to be a lot of holdovers or holdouts, I should say, that use that old system.
There probably will be, just because, I don't know, maybe that's another form of the coach having power. They want to do it their way rather than, let's upgrade this to the year 2024. I don't know. Anybody,
or a little bit more work for those coaches, pardon me, as well, because you got to come up with now, instead of just, okay, look, if you see it, just go to the deputy dog in the corner. That's what the play is, right?
Yeah.
And now they got to come up with the language, run triple XY waggles F650Z and try to figure it out that way. Maybe that's why they would be to hold out.
That's a great question. I have no idea. Anybody who doesn't grasp or want to get along with all the technology and stuff we have these days, I feel sorry for you. I go back to the days when I was playing, when we actually used to get paper pictures sent down that we had to go through on the sideline, flipping through on one screenshot at a time to figure out stuff. Now they got these tablets. Tap on the tablet, it can play the replay for you. You can see where we have to make the adjustment here instead of doing this. Let's do that, So any coach that still wants to hold on to the cardboard cutouts and stuff like that, let's just put it, if I'm a president of a university and I'm seeing that we're spending money on all this stuff, or you don't want to go to the next level, that might make me think that you're not the right guy for this university, because we want to be pushing it and moving forward, not standing where we are in the same space with that old school stuff.
That's why we partners, because you threw that softball pitch to me. So number 19 is players and coaches will now be permitted to use computer tablets on the sideline, coaches' boxes, and locker rooms to review in-game video. Thoughts on that?
As I mentioned, I wish we would have. I mean, I'll date myself even more, Jay. When I was playing in the NFL, every week I had a cassette tape. I'll show you something real quick.
Are you serious?
I had one of these.
Oh, VHS tape. Oh, goodness.
VHS with my name on it and my position. And every week I'd come back in after we played. Say we played New Orleans this week, right? All my cut-ups were put on this. So I would have my first down, short yardage, third and long, whatever, all clipped and put on this. And I'd come in, because we're just done with New Orleans, right? Put it in my little slot in the locker room, and then when I came out that day and after workouts and we're playing the Rams the next week, I'd pick my little tape back up and I'd go home. I'd go home that night, I'd pop it in the VCR, and I'd watch that film on the next upcoming opponent. And I'm talking forward, backward. You watch a little bit, you go back. You don't want this first step. You want to watch this, And that's where I come from. Now they got these tablets where the players never even have to bring them in. They bring them in, but they upload everything automatically to their tablet. And now they can go, if they want to look at 1st and 10 or short yardage, they click on a category and go right to it. I had to actually fast forward on mine to get to short yardage. These guys, all this technology in their hands now. And just as I mentioned earlier, in-game adjustments. Instead of getting the film and flipping through pages and looking and seeing, this is how they start out in the formation. They drop to this, they did that.
Yeah, because it's just a picture. It's click. This is them dropping back.
All
click,
the frames.
This is click frame by frame.
And eventually he got to that position right there. Now you got the tablet
right.
You got the tablet, and they're sitting there with the little touchscreen pens or whatever, and they're actually going through that stuff instant. You're getting it right away. So once again, this will help the players, it'll help the coaches, everybody learn. And then you got to think, it's almost like when they eventually graduate, some of them graduate and go to the next level, meaning pro football. Now you've already been using that stuff. We don't have to teach you from scratch. So NCAA, about time they got to the next level.
All right, so it's Easy Sports Talk Show. He's Ed Smith. I'm Javon Adams, and we're going through the 25 top 25 changes coming to college football in 2024. This is about transferring. So number 14 that they had on this list, Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel starts his 6th season of college football with his 3rd different school after 3 years at UCF and 2 at Oklahoma. Then they also noted that transfer quarterbacks have won 5 of the last 7 Heisman trophies, but Gabriel, who is 4,353 yards from passing, breaking Kevin Cobb's FBS career record of 19,217 yards, will be the first 2-time transfer to win the Heisman. I think this is not going to be the exception to the rule, especially with NIL and how the Pandora's box is open. This transferring 3 times, I'm sure you're going to see probably somebody do it 4, because for whatever reason, I got here, somebody else offered me more money, I'm bouncing. And then eventually I think that will lead to schools saying, yeah, you can come here, but you got to stay for at least 2 seasons and figure it out that way. I think that maybe that's 10 years down the road. But what are your thoughts on that, on the overall kind of general nature of the transferring quarterback or this player in this new landscape, which is evidenced by Dillon Gabriel?
I'm still trying to figure out where's the loophole where they're getting these 5th and 6th years. I know we had
COVID. It was the COVID year. Yeah.
Man, but the way they're stretching these out now, and I got to be honest with you, my North Carolina Tar Heels took advantage of this a little bit. Armando Bacot, I thought he was like 30 years old before he got out of school last year.
That's right. Yeah.
They didn't say. Yeah, I was surprised they didn't tell him, hey, just come on back for one more. I mean, these kids now, and I know it's a little comfortable too. You got this NIL money. Everybody's making something nowadays, especially the stars.
And the schools don't have to pay it. That's the interesting thing. That's what this whole thing was about, for the schools to have to pay. And the schools are not having to pay. They're just saying, hey, you guys, if you support the school, go ahead and put that money together and support these students and help them help us to help them bring them in.
There's good and bad in everything, though. We're getting kids, in my opinion, jumping around too much, chasing the dollar. All it takes for is another school to offer you an extra, I guess, $10,000 or whatever now, and that's how that's where the kids' allegiance stands. Yeah. Whoever's got the most money. Not, I've always wanted to go to this school, or once I sign with this school, I'm going to give them everything I have as long as I have some eligibility. Now it's their schools are going out and buying these kids. Some of them, what's happening at the lower levels, kids are blossoming, and then the bigger schools are coming along saying, hey, we didn't know you were that good. Why don't you come on over here? We'll give you $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is. Yeah. And so now, like, the kids are just hopping all over the country. And to me, it takes a little bit away from getting to know some of the players, or it really does feel like professional sports now. When guys are just, they might as well just say they're all free agents. I do hope they put a limit on it. If you go somewhere, give them a couple years. And obviously we'll be getting out of the COVID extensions, but kids staying 6 years and, getting all that money, all power to them. But as far as, watching it, it has become a little bit of a wild, wild west in terms of, who's going where, how long they're going to stay, and will they stay if somebody comes along and throws a little more money at them. So, I said good intentions, bad execution as far as NIL and the transfer portal, in my opinion.
I will say this, because the thing that I thought was going to be the good consequence of this is that kids would stay longer in school, because if you can get, let's say you're getting 200,000 or 30,000, 50,000, then maybe you'll stay for another year, maybe to develop yourself, your skill set, and that can be for whatever sport that you play. But of course, we're talking about college football here, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get an education so that when you leave, just in case something untoward happens, you get an injury, you're not as talented as you thought you were, you have that education to, at least if you applied yourself, then you may have the connections and the education to help you to be successful in life. Maybe it's just the path to success may be a little bit different because you're not a multimillionaire or in that, that high tax bracket, so to speak.
Hey, thank goodness for transferring credits, right? I mean,
oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
If they didn't, boy, we've been a whole lot of hurt. These kids, obviously, the way they're jumping around, hopefully they'll be able to take most of them credits with them because, as we
Yeah, I think we may have lost Ed real quick, but yeah. So talking about them transfer credits, one of the things that's crazy is when you're in that system, sometimes you got the quarter system, and those folks who know, you got the quarter system and you got the semester system, and so that's what they don't tell you about those credits that transfer or don't transfer, those quarter credits. But yeah, I see you back, man, for sure.
Yeah, hopefully. They're some of the students, some of the athletes, I call them. See, I almost call them students. Hopefully some of the athletes are still concerned about their education enough to take that portion of it seriously. We all know, like I said, it's hard too, Jay, with these kids jumping around their attention. If you're focused on the money and that's all you're focused on, you'll let that education go to waste. And I hope they're not doing that. I hope they stay on top of that and realize that there's only 1% out there that's going to get to that next level in most of the major sports. And in the meantime, I got this opportunity to take advantage of this education. They better be out there trying to get it because we all know. And throw out one more thing about the transfer portal. You and I did something on the terrestrial radio show. You see, I threw that in there. Terrestrial radio show a long time back. We talked about, like, with the portal, we hear the good stories about the kids who are doing all this transferring. There's a percentage of them that jump in the portal and they get left in the portal, leave a good situation, come to find out, hey, we already got our stock over here. Because you know what's happening in every school, just like with the scholarships, you're over-committing because you're going to have some that decline, don't qualify, this, whatever me, they might choose another school, and then you even it all out. Hey, we got just enough, or hey, we got too many, we got to take this, rescind this one. So what's happening, some of these kids are jumping in the portal with promises being made to them, only to find themselves dangling like a fart in the wind, and nothing to show for it. So we hear about all the good, there's also that side of the portal as well, man.
That is the dark side of it. And that's super unfortunate because you have somebody that's gassing you up. Maybe you have an agent, because they're allowed to have agents now. They're gassing you up to tell you to go on. And the thing is, those agents aren't going to stay with you if there's no money coming in. They throwing up the peace sign and they out, man, and they out. So he's Ed Smith. I'm Javon Adams. This is the Easy Sports Talk show with Ed Smith and Javon Adams. So a couple more. We're talking about the top 25 changes that will coming to college football in 2024. So just a couple of more. One, which I think may happen a little bit more over the next 3 to 5 years, where what I'm going to talk about now is I think we'll see this. Chip Kelly, who was the former head coach at UCLA, he is an assistant coach for the first time since 2008, after leading UCLA to 3 straight winning seasons. He took the offensive coordinator job at number 2 Ohio State. And so that's key there. So he took an offensive coordinator job, and UCLA, they're not those top dogs in the SEC or anything like that, but they're kind of one of those blue blood programs, if you will. But UCLA he was head coaching job and going to an offensive coordinator. I think that's something that you may see a little bit more of, because those coaches who have maybe been in the game for a while and realize there's a whole lot of work that I have to do with the NIL and trying to look at this and trying to see how much money we're going to pay to these players, all that, how we're going to allocate this money. And that's not what they signed up for in the college landscape. And so I think you'll probably see some of that happen a bit more. What are your thoughts on this, the Chip Kelly type situation?
That is absolutely going to, and it's happened at a couple other locations as well. Think about this, Jay. These college coaches, many, many years ago, all they had to do, the season would end, they get on the recruiting trail, go see these kids, woo them, talk to mom and dad, get a commitment. You get back to campus, and eventually the kids would start showing up on your campus, and then you had them locked in for 3, sometimes 4 years. Yeah. Now you're going to recruiting these kids, and first off, you got, hey, what you got on my 40, homie? I mean, you know, they're expecting you to walk in the door, meaning high school kids, expecting you to walk in the door, telling them what they are going to earn, their potential. That doesn't satisfy them. They're moving on. Okay, now you get them to your school. Not only do you have to continue to recruit your other incoming freshmen for the next 4 years, you got to recruit this kid that you got on campus last year for the next 3 years, because every time you turn around, there's a threat that he might be scooped up by NIL at another school, jump in the portal. So what's happening, these coaches are like, I don't have enough time in the day. I mean, before, college coaches, like I said, the recruiting season, one signing period in February, maybe a late signing period later in the year, you're done with it. Now it's a 12-month job for these coaches that used to have an all season with all the responsibility and now, but all the blame as well, because their programs are floundering. We saw what happened to USC with Chip Kelly. He wasn't getting it done to the biggest level. And he finally was like, why am I beating myself up doing all this? I'm going out and recruiting these kids. They're only as good as their word, which I can't trust in one of them now, because all it takes is somebody to get in their ear. They're gone. There's all this frustration. Why wouldn't I'll just go make a little less money with a whole lot less responsibility. Now I'm going over to another program, blue blood as it is, Ohio State. I'm going to be the offensive coordinator. I don't have to worry about going and recruiting these kids. That's Brian Day's responsibility. I don't have to worry about what they're getting for NIL. I don't have to worry about them threatening to jump in the transfer portal, because he's going to have to go recruit and fill that hole. I don't have to do that anymore. So that's where we are in the college game. Some of these coaches are like, I'm done with this. And we've seen some of our major basketball head coaches, Roy Williams, Krzyzewski, my man in Syracuse,
Villanova, Syracuse,
UConn. These guys are like, you know what? It's a new day and age. I can't reach these kids. I don't want to attempt to have to reach these kids and placate them for the next 4 years, because before Roy would get somebody on campus, and like I said, you're a Tar Heel now. Let's get this done. Nah, not now. You got to. So even a lot of the coaches that we thought would never be gone, they said, you know what? Nah, I'm done. I've had enough. So obviously we're going to see more of these coaches that were head coaches. They're going to say, nah, it's not even worth it. I'm a good coordinator. I don't need the head job. I'd rather have the smaller office down the hall with a little less responsibility, please. And I think that's a trend that's going to start happening.
What was interesting, this was probably 2 weeks ago, maybe about a week ago, but I was listening to an interview on Sirius XM, and I forgot who they had on, what the program was, what the college football program was, but they, in between the AD and the head coach, they have a general manager now. At this particular program. So to be able to handle some of that stuff, so to take something off the plate of the head coach. And so the head coach in this instance was the one that selected the GM. And so they had that head coach on. And so he was explaining some of those things, because you have to figure out a different way in which you're going to run your team or run your program, because the landscape has changed for sure.
Yeah, and we're going to get to a point, I said, it's getting more and more like professional sports. These kids are not satisfied with their deals or want more. And, head coach, of course, if he can pull off on somebody else, the director of NIL or whatever they're going to call him, they'll start handling that. But eventually it all comes back to the head coach. He'll start to get the blame or the success if, they continue to either bring these kids in or continue to lose kids. That's a frustrating thing. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, you were born at the wrong time, weren't you? Because imagine me coming out of college, coming out of high school right now, at the, two sport, threatening to play both of them, or, man, I'd have NIL coming out my behind right now.
This is true. So speaking of money, so last one, so leave me with this one. Number 25, this year marks the debut of the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. It is the first partnership between an alcohol brand and a college bowl game. I think, again, this might be one of those things that opens that Pandora's box, because there's all these different bowl games that some of these, the title sponsorships, they change hands quite a bit. So I think this will be opening Pandora's box for all kinds of different alcohol sponsorships, and really kind of pushing the envelope that way. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, not even just the alcohol. You think what comes next? I mean, what is Snoop Dogg himself most famous for? You know,
I thought about that too. Yeah. Yep.
And eventually, I mean, we all know it's legal in most states, in a lot of states, not most. It's legal here in Arizona. Eventually, somebody's going to be bold enough to get a sponsorship somehow. And it had to be a major brand. But, I mean, we've seen alcohol throughout the NFL, now leaking into college. It's inevitable, man. When you start throwing the kind of money that some of these sponsors are willing to throw out there to get their name in front of, everything, it's a no-brainer. We might not sprint to it, but we'll eventually get to it. We're not just alcohol. They're doing all kind of crazy stuff out as far as these advertisements. And, it just, all I say is follow the dollar, man. That's what it's all about. Think about where we've gone in just a few short years in terms of betting. Think about, the way these leagues are now in bed with all these books and stuff like that. Something we thought we'd never, ever see. Yeah. And, they're putting franchises in Las Vegas, of all places. Yeah. So it's everything. Once you start doing that type of stuff, Jay, everything is on the board. Everything's on the board. I don't care what you say. So never say never. We're going to see something, and the first thing we're going to say, Jay, is, man, I never thought we'd see that. I'm telling you, never say never.
Indeed. EasySportsTalk.com, EasySportsTalk.com. You can, we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's The Easy Sports Talk Show. Again, The Easy Sports Talk Show. However you found this podcast, we do appreciate it. Share, like, subscribe, tell a friend about what we have going on here. And as we always like to say around this time, Ayukin.